Adam Silver is tired of the games, tired of the smoke and mirrors, and tired of watching one of basketball's most promising institutions slowly bury itself under false promises. The NBA Commissioner, known for his calm precision and forward-thinking leadership, has officially stepped into WNBA territory, and his arrival has turned the entire basketball world upside down. What began as quiet frustration has now become a full-blown restructuring, one that effectively ends Kathy Engelbert's reign as WNBA Commissioner. For years, Engelbert presented herself as the mastermind behind the league's so-called historic growth. But behind that polished image, Silver saw something different. Chaos, inflated numbers, and leadership so disconnected from reality that it risked everything the women's game had worked so hard to build. Adam Silver's patience had limits, and Kathy Engelbert found them. After years of sitting on the sidelines, allowing the WNBA to operate under her direction, Silver finally snapped. Reports from inside the NBA headquarters suggest he grew weary of hearing the same recycled claims of record-breaking success that didn't match up with what sponsors, networks, or fans were actually seeing. Viewership numbers were suspiciously inconsistent, and marketing campaigns lacked any real spark. Even players were growing restless, privately questioning whether Engelbert's leadership could handle the sudden wave of attention brought by one name that had changed everything: Caitlin Clark. For Silver, the breaking point came not from one dramatic event, but from a slow, calculated observation. The league wasn't collapsing, it was stagnating. The public narrative claimed growth, but the data told another story. Silver, ever the numbers man, saw through the illusion, and when Engelbert sold 16% of the league to outside investors while presenting the deal as a sign of progress, it became clear that her focus was more about image management than sustainable growth. So, Silver made a move that no one expected. He began restructuring the WNBA from the inside out, folding it under the NBA's global infrastructure and effectively stripping Engelbert of her authority. The final straw was Engelbert's insistence on taking credit for the WNBA's newfound attention. She claimed her business acumen and leadership were responsible for the surge in ratings and ticket sales. But Silver knew the truth. It wasn't management that transformed the league. It was Caitlin Clark. Her rise in college basketball had reignited public interest in women's sports, and when she entered the WNBA, the numbers exploded. Overnight, the WNBA became must-watch television. Jersey sales broke records, arenas sold out, and broadcasters that once ignored women's basketball were begging for coverage rights. Yet, Engelbert continued to credit her boardroom strategies, refusing to acknowledge that one player had single-handedly carried the league into the spotlight. That arrogance became Engelbert's undoing. Behind the scenes, Silver's office started reviewing the WNBA's finances, media reports, and growth metrics. What they found shocked even longtime insiders. The league's much-publicized record seasons weren't as strong as advertised. Sponsors were being fed exaggerated numbers, and audience engagement was far lower than public statements suggested. To Silver, it was simple. This wasn't leadership. It was theater. Once he decided to act, Silver didn't announce a hostile takeover. He did what he does best, moved quietly, methodically, with precision. He began forming new partnerships overseas, using his influence to bring the WNBA under the NBA's global operations. What looked like a collaborative initiative on paper was, in truth, a structural overhaul. Silver's fingerprints were everywhere: new joint committees, cross-league marketing projects, and shared financial oversight. Every decision, from sponsorship approvals to branding strategies, began flowing through his office instead of Engelbert's. The power shift wasn't sudden. It was strategic, and by the time Engelbert realized what had happened, her authority was already gone. Silver's vision went far beyond the United States. His plan to take the WNBA global was bold, but it was no empty promise. When he announced interest in bringing a WNBA game to China, it wasn't just a publicity stunt. It was a message. He wasn't just expanding women's basketball. He was globalizing it, and he knew exactly who would be the face of that movement. "We'd love to bring Caitlin to China," he said casually, but the subtext was thunderous. Caitlin Clark wasn't just a player. She was the bridge to international markets, the key to unlocking audiences who had never cared about the WNBA before. For Engelbert, that statement was devastating. Her empire, once defined by corporate structure and image control, was now being dismantled in public. The woman who once stood on stage claiming to be the architect of the WNBA's success was now being phased out by the man who built basketball into a global empire. Silver's office took over sponsorship deals, media negotiations, and even the league's social media strategies. Engelbert's role was reduced to ceremonial appearances and interviews designed to save face. The real power had shifted, permanently. Caitlin Clark's influence made Silver's transition seamless. Every major decision revolved around her. Silver's marketing teams built campaigns around her performances, leveraging her name to attract global sponsors. Networks that once treated WNBA games as filler content now promoted them as headline events. International audiences began recognizing her as the new face of women's basketball. And Silver wasted no time positioning her alongside NBA legends as part of his long-term vision for integrated global branding. Engelbert had no role in that plan because the world no longer needed her version of leadership. Still, she tried to fight back. Inside the WNBA offices, Engelbert held emergency meetings demanding to know why her authority was being undermined. But the answers never came. The channels that once reported to her now bypassed her completely, answering directly to NBA executives. When she attempted to release public statements framing Silver's moves as collaborative initiatives, they were drowned out by his latest announcements: new sponsorships, expanded media deals, and international events. Every time she tried to reclaim control, Silver moved another step ahead. And then came the China partnership, a move Engelbert had dreamed of but could never secure. Silver's team finalized it without her input, securing broadcasting rights and sponsorships that instantly elevated the WNBA's profile overseas. Chinese fans began wearing Caitlin Clark jerseys, and footage from packed arenas in Macau went viral. Engelbert learned about the deal the same way the public did, from the headlines. Her reaction, insiders say, was pure disbelief. Years of effort to globalize the WNBA had led nowhere, and now Silver had accomplished it in months. The symbolism couldn't have been clearer. What she couldn't build through speeches, Silver achieved through action. When the NBA and WNBA officially announced their new unified operations plan, Engelbert's fate was sealed. She attended the press conference, standing beside Silver with a polite smile, but everyone watching knew what it meant. Her name was no longer synonymous with progress. It was a footnote in the story of the league's rebirth. From that point forward, the WNBA was no longer a separate entity fighting for relevance. It was part of something far bigger, a global basketball empire under Adam Silver's command. In the months that followed, the results spoke for themselves. Sponsorship revenue tripled. Networks fought for broadcasting rights. Fans from around the world tuned in to watch Caitlin Clark and her peers take the court under the new unified brand. The Silver era had arrived, and women's basketball was finally being treated not as a side project, but as a cornerstone of the sport's future. Engelbert's legacy faded quietly, her once commanding presence reduced to an advisory role she didn't want, but couldn't refuse. Adam Silver's actions weren't driven by ego, they were driven by necessity. He saw what others didn't, that the WNBA didn't need slogans or spin, it needed structure, accountability, and vision. He gave it all three. What emerged wasn't just a stronger league, it was a revolution. For the first time, the NBA and WNBA shared a unified vision, equal in ambition, reach, and purpose. And through it all, Caitlin Clark stood at the center, the undeniable symbol of what women's basketball could become when given the platform it deserved. Her talent, charisma, and global appeal became the engine of Silver's transformation, and the proof that one player could change everything.